guys to Lying Serpent Media. Today, as you could tell by the topic, we are going to get into the deep state and how deep does the deep state go. I don't know if you feel like I do, but are you confident that these acts that these people committed within our government, these treasonous acts, with the Russian collusion hoax and the whole slandering and things of that nature that they have done against President Trump. Also, the things that had taken place even in the Obama administration, how they targeted 501(c) organizations, and punished them or held back their approvals based on being conservative outlets or organizations. All these things that was taking place makes me feel like I have no confidence in these people being brought to justice. I don't know if you understand how much work has to be done to root out all these people out of government. I mean, you literally would have to fire thousands of people. There's a lot of people in government that's walking around there pretending to be America, for America, or American. And they're not. They have signed on to this Luciferian agenda to help destroy this country, which completely baffles me at times, because why would somebody want to destroy their own country? Well, until I started reading books like Pawns in the Game, then I understood how people are caught up and entrapped and have no choice but to participate or either quit their job and leave government alone, find some other profession. But if they decide that the money is good and they just can't go and find something else to do, they either, sign on with this agenda. Now I'm going to read a few excerpts from things that has taken place in the past, the way they set up Marie Antoinette and King Louis XVI. We really didn't learn much about them in U.S. history, but as I began to re-educate myself with the things that are taking place in this world, I learned so much, and I understand the confusion as to why people don't understand or why they are baffled as I was when you start looking at the deep state and the things that these people want to bring about in this country. Okay, so what we're going to do is go back to that famous book, Pawns in the Game by William Guy Carr. And I don't know, I had mentioned before, William Guy Carr was Canadian, participated in World War II. He was they actually tried to initiate him when he was 12 years old. Let me just read this little excerpt on the back of the book. It says, at the early age of 12, the author was thoroughly indoctrinated into the Bolshevik ideology by two revolutionary missionaries who traveled on the same ship with him out of the Orient in 1907. But later on in life, even at the age of 12, he knew better than to accept that information. He is a Christian, so apparently his parents had set that foundation to where he had a barrier to resist evil, which is what parents need to be doing today. You need to purposely disciple your children so they would have a barrier for when they go out into these institutions of public education, that they will have, the fortitude to fight against the evils and the indoctrination that takes place in these walls of education. But Commander Carr decided to keep an open mind, and he thoroughly investigated the matters, and that's exactly what he did. He went on to author several books. One is Pawns in the Game. He had By Guessing by God, Hell's Angels of the Deep, High and Dry, Good Hunting, Out of the Mist, Checkmate in the North, Brass Hats and Bell-Bottom Trousers. And it's rumored that they even put him to death for putting out this book. I'm telling you, there is so much information in this book that will just have you stunned. But when you read it and you look at what's taking place today, then you will see that these things that we're dealing with has been going on for centuries. Even when I educated myself on what took place during the Civil War with Abraham Lincoln and what they did to him and how they eventually assassinated him. But let's get into this excerpt. Now, we hear a lot of talk on the internet about the Illuminati, and so much talk to where most people ignore it and they say it doesn't exist. But for those of you who are awake like me and who have investigated these things, know that there is some truth to this organization that started centuries ago. And there's a fact that many of our congressmen, even congresswomen, are part of these secret societies. But what had taken place back with Adam Weishaupt is that they infiltrated continental Freemasonry with the Grand Orient Lodge, and this was like the hotbed of where they hatched their plans for the World Revolutionary Movement. And all of this is centered around that little period that I told you, starting with about around 1000 AD, when the Jews, the so-called Jews, begin to be expelled from all these different countries. You know, this is a way, and they have carried this on for years and years and years. And as I stated before, the whole hope is world domination and to have the world under their feet. But let's get into this before I get sidetracked and on to something else. Okay, now, as you know, within that secret society, you have the Council of 33 and the Councils of 13. This is higher up on the pyramid. So this is where we're going to start with Ingolstadt University. The Supreme Council decided they would use Ingolstadt Lodge to organize a campaign by which the agents or cells of the Illuminati will infiltrate into continental Freemasonry and under the cloak of social enjoyment and public philanthropy, organize their revolutionary underground. Those who infiltrated into continental Freemasonry were ordered to establish lodges of the Grand Orient and to use them for proselytism so they could quickly contact non-Jews of wealth, position, and influence connected with both church and state. And as I stated before, when you start looking into many of our senators, a lot of them are Knights of Columbus, Freemasons, Knights of Malta, and there's a reason. So those that go before the cameras and speak like they uphold the Constitution and oh, they're great Americans, but deep down, eventually their treasonous acts begins to show as they vote certain ways on certain bills. Okay, it says it was a simple matter for the moneylenders to have their agents contact Mirabeau. Mirabeau, the Count of Mirabeau, was a French orator who they had led down this path of destruction. And once these people take the bait, they have no choice. Just like when Eve was deceived by the serpent, it's just like it was an automatic thing for her to go find Adam to lead him down that same path. And Satan does nothing new. And we see this take place within this world of secret societies. So once they contacted Mirabeau, listen to this, under the guise of friends and admirers, they offered to help him out of his financial difficulties. See, they strike at you at your point of weakness and then to see if they can get you. And if you take the bait, they will not quit until they fully have their hooks within you. It says what they actually did was lead him down the primrose path into the very depths of vice, debauchery, until he was so deeply in their debts that he was forced to do their bidding. At a meeting to consolidate his debts, Mirabeau was introduced to Moses Mendelssohn, one of the big Jewish financiers, who took him in hand. Mendelssohn in due time introduced Mirabeau to a woman famous for her personal beauty and charm, but without moral scruples. So you know what that was all about. This stunning Jewess was married to a man named Hertz, but to a man like Mirabeau, the fact that she was married only made her more desirable. It was not long before she was spending more time with Mirabeau than with her own husband. Heavily in debt to Mendelssohn, tightly ensnared by Mrs. Hertz, Mirabeau was completely helpless. He had swallowed the bait, hook, line, and sinker. Like good fishermen, they played him gently for a time. If they exerted too great a pressure, the leader might break and their fish might get away. Their next move was to have him initiated into Illuminism. He was sworn to secrecy and unlimited obedience under the pain of death. The next move was to lead him into compromising situations which mysteriously became public. This method of destroying a man's character was known as lynchamy. Because of scandals and organized detractions, Mirabeau was ostracized by many of his social equals. His resentment produced a desire for revenge, and thus he embraced a full revolutionary cause. And that's how people get caught up. You hear about, there was a movie that came out, The Bank Job. It was based on a true story with Jason Statham, and there was a character in that movie named Michael X. Now he had hooked up with the madam of the town, where they had like this mirror. They can look at the mirror, but it was people behind the mirror. So as these heads of states in the parliament would come in there and have their little rendezvous, he had his people back there taking pictures, and he would blackmail them. So this man, Michael X, he was known as like almost like a slumlord. He had drug dealings going on, but they could not touch him because he would threaten to expose them by those photos. I mean, he had pictures of this one royal member of the royal family. She was in there, you know, and one of the lords was in there, and they were determined to get those pictures back. But this was like an age-old practice that took place over there in the UK, you know, over there even in France, you know, in Europe, where they would practice this lynchamy to destroy people's characters, you know, and keep them in check. So it says Mirabeau's task was to basically, after he was led down this primrose path of destruction, his job was to get the Duke d'Orleans and lead him down the same very path. Now the Duke had financial problems as well, so they actually initiated him into Luminism, and he accepted it. So what they did, they took one of his estates and turned it into the Palais Royal. And what they started doing was having different shows. I mean, everything you can think of, sexual vices, everything under the sun was going on in these palaces. But what they told him was that they were going to eliminate the king and queen, Marie Antoinette and King Louis. They said they were going to get rid of them. Now he didn't know that they were going to murder them, and they were going to put him in place. So, but what you read from or learned in the French Revolution is that these people was actually put to death. And the things that you might have learned about Marie Antoinette, how they destroyed her character, was completely false. You know, this woman, they put the same practice on her, this lynchamy, where they had that famous $250,000 necklace made up, and said that it was delivered to her by a certain admirer, a so-called man that she was supposedly having an affair with. But what they did, they had this man Rohan come to the Palais Royal to meet with this prostitute that was similar in beauty or character, facial appearance to Marie Antoinette. They had her to dress up as Marie Antoinette, and she seduced this man. So guess what? They set all this up, and then the rumor started to fly that it was Marie Antoinette that had this affair. And so this is how they would distort the truth. This is how they would deceive the public. And this is the same thing that takes place today. You've seen all the lies that mainstream media, especially on the left, but like CNN and MSNBC, they do not try to put out facts. Their whole point was to destroy the character of Trump. They pulled up stuff over 40, 15, 30 years ago to get people to turn against President Trump. Now, for those who do not read and educate and look for facts, you know, they bought it like some of these people did with the World Revolutionary Movement. They bought it hook, line, and sinker. And people have so much unexplainable hate that they even termed it Trump derangement syndrome. But all of this is based on lies. So what we learned is that with this deep state and the things that took place in the past, there is a connection here. And people just need to do their research and learn the truth for themselves. Now, I don't know if these people are going to ever be brought to justice, because these people are so heavily embedded within our government that they are determined to have things to go their way. As you could see, Mueller finished his investigation, said no evidence of collusion, dropped the case. Everything is done, but yet they're still pushing for impeachment because they are determined to get back at Trump for destroying their plans, for trying to destroy this country. Their plans of taking over and subjecting America like every other country has been in effect at the infancy of this country. Okay guys, I'm gonna have to cut this one short and maybe do a part 2 because my battery is okay. That was actually my tape. Wow, my little card is filled up. So anyway, just to end on this note, because I ran a little long with this deep state and how deep the deep state goes. Like I said in the beginning, these things goes back ages. Well, let me just say centuries. At the infancy of America, you know, when this country was just getting started, she was just a baby, and people were, you know, migrating here from the old world. Remember, this is the new world. They want this to be the new world order. You know, people was fleeing religious persecution, and you have to remember that all of this stuff is centered around spiritual warfare. You cannot escape that fact. And I've done several videos and read several excerpts from this book and things from the assassination of Abraham Lincoln, how if he would have let it known the people that were fighting against him and who they were, the Civil War, the North and the South who was fighting against each other would have joined forces to rid our country of the people who had started and who was behind the Civil War, until they would have rid this country of every single last rabid Roman Catholic. Now that's a fact. And if you don't believe me, go and get the book. It's a little pamphlet by Charles Chinnery, who was the friend of Abraham Lincoln. It is entitled The Assassination of Abraham Lincoln, and you will be surprised because these things you would have never heard in the history of this country or in government education. These things was hidden from us, and now we see today people tearing down all these monuments. Thomas Jefferson, Sam Houston, under the guise of they owned slaves or they had slaves or they permitted slavery, which is a joke to me because in the heart of the Confederate South, South Carolina, black people had slaves. So to me, this is just a ploy to change the face of America. As you see, all these Africans, Haitians, Cubans beating down our border down there in Mexico, trying to get in here. Hundreds and thousands, even millions of people flooding into this country. They are trying to change America and make her no more America like they've done with Europe. So many Middle Eastern migrants in Europe, the face of it has changed. And this is what their plan is for the whole world, as I stated before, and I'm going to keep saying it again, because it's spiritual warfare and people need to wake up to what's really going on. Time is drawing to a close and people have to make a decision. Tomorrow is not promised to no man. I don't know if you know the Lord Jesus Christ. If you're ready, when you die, are you confident that when you awake, you're going to see the Lord? Are you confident that you're going to come up in that first resurrection? If not, then maybe you need to reconsider cleaning house. It is my job here to simply try to give you information to help you to make better decisions within this country, within the spiritual realm, and hopefully we'll all get there together, because people fail to realize that this world is temporary. A better one is to come. And I hope you're planning on participating in the world to come. And that's how I'm going to end it. And I'll see you guys on the next one.